Right. So we are picking up where we just left off. And this is the last tab for this, specifically this story, Unkindness from the Fish's Mouth. We've been going over all of the chapters already. So now we're going to get into chapter 10. I'm not sure why Google Docs is doing this right now. So let's get into the epigraph. The ascendant is not who you are. It's the door you built because you thought it was the only way in. Spend a lifetime polishing the hinges, never noticing the wall around it has crumbled from the syndicate's notes on failed interests. We conclude, as all things must at the beginning, the ascendant, the rising sign, the mask you didn't choose, but the one the universe fitted to your face at the moment you drew first breath. It is the lens through which the world first sees you, and through which you learn to see the world. It is your instinctive strategy for arrival. But what happens when the strategy becomes the entirety of the campaign? When the door becomes the house, the key becomes the treasure, and the act of entering becomes the only place you ever live. Our final subject is Cassian. His ascendant is in Virgo. A precise, analytical, and service-oriented lens, Virgo rising meets the world with a mental checklist. Its goal is to discern flaw, to categorize, to improve, and above all, to be of use. It is a sign of discernment bordering on diagnosis. From childhood, Cassian was the child who organized the teacher's pencils, the teen who debugged the family computer, the adult whose first words at any scene of mild chaos were, "Here, let me sort this." He built his life as a perfect monument to useful arrival. He became a professional systems optimizer for human-scale ecosystems. A fancy term meaning he fixed dysfunctional libraries, community centers, small nonprofits. He entered each new client's chaos like a surgical blade, assessing, sorting, streamlining. He left behind clean shelves, clear protocols, and a faint, lingering smell of antiseptic efficiency. He was always impeccably appropriate. His Virgo ascendant was a flawless filtering system, sifting the raw chaos of existence into manageable, solvable bits. The dark, hilarious tragedy of an over-identified ascendant is that it works too well. And it solves for the problem of existing so efficiently that it eliminates the need to actually live. Cassian didn't have problems, he had projects. Grief was a processing error. Loneliness was a connectivity deficit. He related to the world not as a participant, but as a perpetually on-call technician. His relationships were service contracts. His pleasures were efficiency gains. His Virgo lens had become a closed loop, a self-licking ice cream cone of critique and correction. The universe, in its infinite comedic timing, decided to send him a client his system could not parse. The client was the museum of outmoded objects, a crumbling mansion run by an elderly brother and sister, the Galts, who were less curators and more passive-aggressive caretakers of chaos. The museum held things like a collection of failed corkscrew designs, a hall of ill-advised synthetic fabrics, and the world's largest assemblage of burnt-out vacuum tube radio components. Nothing was labeled. Dust was considered part of the patina. The system was the siblings' shared decaying memory. Cassian's Virgo ascendant experienced this as a physical pain. His first report was a masterpiece of corrective vision, a proposed digital catalog, climate control, clear thematic zoning, a gift shop selling tasteful reproductions of the least ugly corkscrews. The Galts read it over, tea served and shipped, radioactive-looking feastware. "My dear boy," said Alara Galt, not unkindly, "you've entirely missed the point. The charm is in the obscurity. The value is in the failure. Your system would turn our lovely mausoleum of misfortune into a functioning institution." She said the last two words as if describing a venereal disease. This was Cassian's Rubicon. His ascendant's entire raison d'etre was being rejected. He was being told his fundamental method of arrival, to clean, to sort, to fix, was not just unwelcome, but antithetical to the project's soul. Stubbornly, he kept showing up. He told himself it was professional duty, but a crack had been forced in his Virgo lens. Without his tools of optimization, he was forced to simply be there, to sit, to listen, to get dust on his trousers. He learned the story that failed corkscrew nearly bankrupted a hopeful inventor in 1912. That horrifying shag carpet sample was from the suite of a famous singer during her notorious lost year. Each object was not a thing to be categorized, but a tombstone for a dead hope, a solidified what if. The museum was not a collection of objects, it was a graveyard of function, and the Galts were its gentle, ironic priests. Cassian's crisis arrived during an attempt to at least tidy the radio tube room. He reached for a particularly grotesque, bulbous tube labeled the Hope's Heart, Prototype 3, 1938. His fingers, usually so sure, fumbled. The tube slipped, hit the floor, and shattered with a sound like a dying sigh. He stood frozen, expecting outrage. Instead, Silas Galt shuffled in, looked at the fragments, and sighed. Ah, Hope's Heart. Always was a fragile thing, broke during the first test, too. They said you could hear the inventor weeping through the factory wall. He patted Case's shoulder. Now it is authentically ruined. We can label it failure in 2 acts, an upgrade. In that moment, Cassian's ascendant armor didn't just crack, it dissolved. He wasn't a helpful fixer, he was another clumsy human, adding his own chapter to the chronicle of collapse. He had arrived not with a solution, but with an accident, and it was perversely the most appropriate thing he'd ever done there. He began to come to the museum not to work, but to wander. He stopped trying to sort. He developed a fondness for a particularly malign vinyl sofa that emitted a faint shriek when sat upon. He brought the Galts terrible, store-bought pie, and they complained about it with theatrical relish. He was, for the first time, useless, and in that uselessness he was finally present. The Ascendant is the costume you wear to the party of life. Cassian's Virgo costume was an impeccable lab coat. He thought the party was a problem to be solved. The Galts taught him the party was awake for all lost potential, and the only proper response was to raise a glass of questionable sherry to the beautiful broken mess of it all. He didn't quit his job. He still optimized his systems, but something has changed. He now sometimes introduces a deliberate inefficiency into his plans, a redundant loop, a slightly awkward but human-friendly protocol. He calls them grace notes. Clients are sometimes puzzled. Results are sometimes slightly less than perfect, but the processes have a strange new durability. They can breathe. They can accommodate a little dust. The Ascendant is a door you built. Cassian spent 40 years polishing his, believing it was the only way into the castle of a meaningful life. The joke was on him. The castle was a ruin, and the real treasure was the ivy growing over the lintel, the birds nesting in the lock, and the profound liberating truth that he never needed to arrive anywhere at all. He was already there, just by being broken and curious and gloriously, thankfully, of no use. And so our charts are cast. From the feral moon to the polished mid-heaven, from the gilded trap of fortune to the crumbling door of the ascendant, we have mapped the cages. The humor, as always, is in the precision of the bars. The hope, if there is any, is in the realization that a cage mapped is a cage known. And a known cage, in the right light from a certain angle, can look remarkably like a sanctuary. The stars wrote the contract. Our suffering is the signature. Our laughter, however brief and sharp, is the defiant marginalia. Now put this book down, put this video away, and go look at the sky. It's not a map, it's a mirror, and it is laughing. Alright. Now, I want to get into more pages from Fishy Flux really quick, which is my original book based on astrology, including bits of my own natal chart, as you see on this here first page, which I've already read on this channel before. So let's do... well, let's talk about annual perfections and Time Lords. So, I'm using my own birth chart to help you guys understand this. And essentially, we'll go over it in detail. And I'm actually just gonna... I would like to download it, but I don't think it's gonna work how I want it to. But we can try. Let me see. It's just, I'm not sure if it's gonna show up as like multiple tabs or if it's just gonna be this one tab, and that's the trouble with it. See, I think it's gonna do it again. Or it's just multiple tabs. Yep. Alright, well, here's what we'll do. We'll just, oop. Damn. Sorry, guys. I'm gonna get this video right. What page were we on? I should be able to find it. Nope, that's not it either. Alright, there it is. Tab 34. Alright, sorry about that. Now let's get into this. And we'll change to a dark theme. Or not. Alright, there we go. I'm gonna have to jump back to the other tab. I'm not sure why Google Docs does that. It just like boots me out of the tab that I was just in. Alright, there it is. Alright, so annual perfections and Time Lord analysis. And here's the methodology for this. This is a Hellenistic annual perfections, 12 zodiacal Time Lords with secondary activation via rulerships, aspects, and derived lords. First, we need to determine the activated Time Lord, and by doing that, we look at our annual perfections. So annual perfections advance one house per year of life, starting from the first house at birth, the first year, and the cycle resets every 12 years. To calculate this, we need what? The native's current age, or specific year in question. And for example, if a native is 21 years old, or 33, 45, 57, etc., the perfection year is 9, because 21 divided by 12, the remainder is 9. So let's talk about the activated house, which is the 9th house of the natal chart. Now that we did that math, so the Time Lord planet is the ruler of the sign on the cusp of the 9th house. From the chart, the 9th house cusp is Capricorn at 919 degrees. And the ruler of Capricorn is Saturn. The planet, Saturn. That's what we're looking for, planet rulers as well, when we're doing our annual perfections. And we're looking at our activated Time Lords. We're using our rulerships, our aspects, and our derived lords with our Hellenistic annual perfections, 12-fold zodiacal Time Lords, secondary activations, excuse me. And this is how we're going about it. Alright, so if a native is 22 years old, or 34, 46, 58, it would be year 10. And that activates the 10th house. And the 10th house cusp is Capricorn, but at this time it's later degrees. It's 29, 34 degrees of Capricorn, but it's at the anaretic. Which is 29 degrees. So the ruler is Saturn, of course, though it's late Capricorn, it leads toward Aquarius co-influence, and Saturn remains the primary lord. If a native is 23 years old, or 35, 47, 59, it would be year 11 with an 11th house activation. The 11th house cusp is Aquarius at 24, 56 degrees. The ruler is, modernly speaking, it's Uranus, but traditionally it's Saturn. In Hellenistic practice, Saturn is used. For this analysis, I will assume a perfection year, activating the 9th house, year 9, as an example. So the Time Lord is Saturn. Now let's look at our primary activations, the 9th house perfection. Activated house and themes. So the 9th house is what? Higher education, long distance travel, law, philosophy, publishing, foreign affairs, spirituality, expansion of mind. And the planets in the 9th house, Mars at 1407 degrees of Capricorn. This is an example. So Mars in the 9th house will be a strong focus. So travel may be impulsive or conflict-driven. Mars with ambition, Capricorn in academic, legal pursuits. There's potential for disputes during travel or with foreign entities. Now let's look at the Time Lord planet, Saturn, and the condition. So Saturn, this is again an example. Saturn in Cancer at 2053 degrees retrograde in the 3rd house. What does it mean? Well, Saturn's in detriment because it's in Cancer, and it's opposite Capricorn, and it's retrograde, and it's in fall. If using exaltation in Libra, challenging condition. So the themes of this: Saturn rules the activated 9th house, but it's sitting in the 3rd house of siblings and communication and local environment and early education. And this manifests as responsibilities. Saturn may involve family, Cancer, communication hurdles, the 3rd house, or revisiting old community obligations, retrograde. The expansion, 9th house sought may be hindered by local duties, 3rd house, or emotional burdens, Cancer. In the aspects, very important, Saturn trines Neptune at 15 degrees Aquarius in the 10th house, and that's potential for structuring. Saturn, dreams, Neptune in career, 10th house. Saturn sextiles Pluto, 24 degrees Sagittarius in the 8th house. That is an ability to transform. Pluto through discipline, communication. Saturn in the 3rd house. Secondary activations via rulership chain. We need to know the ruler of the Time Lord's house. So, for example, Saturn's house. Saturn is in Cancer, and it's ruled by the moon. And moon is in Libra, for example, at 614 degrees in the 6th house. Thus, the 6th house matters of health, daily work, service, and pets, and the moon's condition becomes subactivated. Moon in Libra seeks balance in daily routines, and in the 6th house, it may indicate work and partnerships are health focused on equilibrium. Moon opposing Uranus at 650 degrees Pisces in the 11th house. Sudden changes in daily work or health routines affecting friendships, groups, because that's the 11th house. So Moon square Pluto, which is a tight orb, because it's 614 degrees Libra versus 2417 degrees Sagittarius, leading to power struggles in work and health, intense emotional transformations through service. Now we look at the ruler of the ascendant for the year. If 9th house profection, ascendant for the year is Sagittarius. Because why? These signs are together. These houses, this zodiac sign and this house go together. So the year ruler is what? It's Jupiter, because Jupiter is the ruler of Sagittarius. Now, for example, let's say Jupiter is in Libra, 1755 degrees retrograde in the 6th house. What does it mean? Jupiter is retrograde in the 6th house. It means reevaluation of work ethics, health regimens, or service roles, and it may indicate overexpansion, then contraction in daily affairs. Jupiter conjunct the vertex, for example, 2403 degrees Libra in the 6th house, fated encounters related to work and health. Jupiter trines Saturn, for example, 1755 degrees Libra to 2053 degrees Cancer, supportive structure between daily work, the 6th house, and communication and family, the 3rd house. Activated planets in the 9th house. So Mars is in Capricorn at 1407 degrees in the 9th house. So first of all, Mars is exalted in Capricorn. So that's strong discipline drive for 9th house pursuits. Mars is square Neptune at 15 degrees Aquarius in the 10th house. Caution around confusion or deception in career. The 10th house related to travel and legal matters, the 9th house. Mars is sextile Pluto, 14 degrees Capricorn to 24 degrees Sagittarius. This means transformative power through assertive action in philosophical legal realms. Tertiary activations via aspect to Time Lord in activated houses. So planets aspecting Saturn, my Time Lord. Saturn trine Neptune in the 10th house. Career dreams gain structure and possible behind-the-scenes spiritual discipline. Saturn sextile Pluto in the 8th house. Depth psychology, inheritance, or shared resources. The 8th house transformed through discipline, effort. Saturn square Uranus, that's an orb of 14 degrees, 20 degrees Cancer to 6 degrees of Pisces, wide but sign-based square of Cancer and Pisces, and tension between tradition, Saturn, and innovation, Uranus, and communication, the 3rd house, versus groups, the 11th house. Planets conjunct the activated house cusps. So the 9th house cusp, Capricorn at 919 degrees, has Mars at 1407 degrees within, so Mars strongly colors the year. 4th house cusp, Cancer at 2934 degrees, has Saturn 2053 degrees within, so Saturn also activates home, family, and roots themes. This creates a cross-axis activation because 9th house, travel and law, and the 4th house, home and family, both emphasized by Saturn-Mars interplay. So here's the synthesis and thematic predictions for the year. assuming ninth house profection, Time Lord Saturn. Career versus home pole. Saturn, the Time Lord, in the 4th house of family and roots, opposite Mars in the 9th. Long distance travel and study suggests tension between domestic responsibilities and desire for expansion, possible relocation for education and career, but with familial burden. Okay, so that's just an example, but key periods as well. Saturn return phases, if age 29 through 30 or 58, 59, would amplify. Mars transits over natal Saturn or Jupiter will trigger the profection themes. Solar return emphasis on the 9th house planets will coincide. Here's the adjustment for other profection years. So if you're in your year 10, the 10th house profection, Time Lord is still Saturn, Capricorn's on the midheaven, but activated house is the 10th. Career, public reputation, authority figures emphasize Saturn in the 4th. Career, home, balance, stress, Neptune, Chiron in the 10th house, idealism versus wounds and vocation. For year 11, in the 11th house profection, Time Lord Saturn, traditional ruler of Aquarius. The activated house is the 11th of friends, groups, aspirations, and Uranus is in the 11th house in Pisces. So it's going to highlight sudden spiritual awakenings in groups. Saturn in the 3rd house, responsibilities within the local network. For the 12th house profection, year 12, Time Lord Jupiter, Pisces ruler. The activated house is the 12th of solitude, secrets, institutions, and Jupiter is retrograde in the 6th house in Libra. Health retreat, service behind the scenes. Rahu, also known as the North Node, in Aries in the 12th house, karmic solitude, especially. So the profection system reveals Saturn as the recurring Time Lord for the key years of the 9th, 10th, and the 11th houses, emphasizing structure, discipline, and tension between local family duties, 3rd and 4th house, and expansion in the 9th and 10th house. The activated Mars in 9th house adds driven, ambitious energy, travel, and study, while Moon in the 6th house ties outcomes to daily work and health adjustments. Retrogrades, Saturn and Jupiter, suggest revisiting past themes in these areas. So again, here's a recommendation. Native should note the ascendant sign for the profection year. For example, Sagittarius ascendant for the 9th house profection year, and watch transits to Jupiter and Saturn for the timing of events. Now let's see. We can keep teaching you guys some more stuff. I feel like I saw something that I did want to share. So I don't think we did this one where I was talking about morphic star stuff. But either way, this is the esoteric infrastructure. I think we're going to end the video with this. By the Advanced Genius Astrology Institute of Occult Esoteric Division. So here's the philosophical framework, the hidden architecture. Before examining specific points, here's what's to understand. Traditional astrology is a conscious system. Esoteric astrology is the unconscious scaffolding, and these obscure points represent quantum entanglement markers in the soul's contract, karmic algorithms running in background processes, portals to parallel incarnational timelines, resonance frequencies with transpersonal realms. Let's get into the fixed stars, the galactic broadcast system. First, we have Aldebaran, 15 degrees Gemini, the Eye of Gold. Astronomy, Alpha Tauri, Red Giant, Hyades cluster V-shape. Mythology, the follower of Pleiades. Watcher, Archangel, Michael's star. Advanced interpretation. 15 degrees Gemini. Degree of messenger initiation, information with cosmic consequence. Conjunction, 0, 30 degrees, orb max. Sun, destiny as a visible keeper of cosmic law, fame through integrity. Moon, emotional template of celestial guardianship. Intuitive download capacity. Midheaven, vocation as interdimensional ambassador. Quantum function, acts as a stellar gateway, amplifies any planet to galactic significance. Shadow manifestation, Messiah complex, assuming unwanted cosmic responsibility. Rigorous technique, check its anti-Sion, 15 degrees, Capricorn for hidden support. Opposition. Algol, 26 degrees Taurus, the demon star, and I actually have this in my ascendant. Your girl got that in the ascendant. So the astronomy, Beta Persei, eclipsing binary, winking variable star, mythology, Medusa's severed head, victory that curses the victor. And here's an advanced interpretation of this. So Algol appears at 26 degrees of Taurus, anaretic degree of material manifestation at crisis point. Now, the Algol paradox is simultaneously confers power to decapitate old structures in danger of being frozen by fear. The layered meaning historically is the beheading of old paradigms. Psychologically, it's shadow integration through terrifying self-confrontation. Quantum wave function collapser forces decisive, often brutal reality shifts. Conjunction protocols, Mars Algol, surgical violence capacity, literal surgeon or destructive warrior. Venus Algol, taboo eros, attraction to dangerous beauty. Saturn Algol, karmic executioner role, ending cycles for others. Here's a protection ritual and interpretation. Always pair with Alcyone, Pleiades analysis. If both contacted, the hero's journey is invoked. Our lunar apogee points, the dark moon symphony, black moon Lilith, mean versus true. Here's the astronomical reality. Mean, mathematical average of lunar apogee. True, actual oscillating apogee, more erratic. Interpretive distinction. Mean, Lilith, chronic condition of the soul, lifelong rejection pattern, and true Lilith, acute episodes, specific events, periods of eruptive shadow. The four Liliths, complete system. Black moon Lilith, apogee, rejected feminine, house where you refuse to be controlled, sign how you weaponize autonomy. Asteroid Lilith, 1181, vindictive feminine, personal retaliation style. Osculating Lilith, Waldemath's dark moon, illusory feminine, self-deception in relationships. Priapus Lilith, lunar perigee, phallic feminine, overcompensation through dominance. Our quantum interpretation is this. Lilith represents suppressed quantum states, realities you could have experienced but rejected. Her aspects show where parallel lives bleed through. For example, Lilith square Venus equals romantic choices systematically avoiding a certain type that represents a fear timeline. Now let's talk about Selene, white moon, the exalted feminine. The point is opposite black moon Lilith. The function is Sophianic grace, effortless right action. The key is Selene shows what your soul naturally does well without trying, often overlooked because it's effortless. Advanced, the Selene Lilith axis equals karmic tightrope between grace and exile. Let's talk about the lunar nodes, the karmic algorithms, which I've talked about in a number of other videos. So Rahu, and Ketu. So Rahu, the north node of the moon, and Ketu, the south node of the moon. We're getting into the Vedic depth of this. So beyond the past versus the future. Ketu, the south node, as soul memory fragmentation, what's stored in cellular consciousness. Vedic detail, Ketu is a headless body, experience without cognitive framework. Manifestation, deja vu, inexplicable skills, phantom limb of the soul. Quantum state, decohered karma, past life data that lost coherence. Rahu, the north node, as data acquisition protocol for disincarnation. The Vedic detail is Rahu is swallowing head without a body, and its consumption without digestion. Manifestation, obsessions that structure learning. Quantum state, observational filter, what this consciousness is programmed to notice. Our nodal axis reversal. Tropical, Western, psychological integration axis, sidereal Vedic, incarnational purpose axis. Advanced practice calculating both. Tropical shows conscious work, sidereal shows soul contract. Nodal timing. The nodal return is 18.6 years, not just ages 19, 37, 56, 75. Nodal ingress, changing signs every 18 months equals karmic chapter shifts. Nodal reversal, progress nodes moving backward equals past life review period. Draconic chart, the soul's blueprint, calculation rebase chart with north node at 0 degrees Aries. Here's the interpretation. It's not a separate chart, but the algorithm running the natal chart. Draconic sun equals soul's essential vibration before earthly modifications. The key application is comparing the draconic Venus with natal Venus equals the difference between soul love and incarnational love patterns. Let's talk about the Arabian parts, the calculated oracles. Part of fortune, part is fortuna. Standard, it's the ascendant and the moon, subtracting the sun in the day, divided by the ascendant and the sun, subtracting the moon at night. So the hidden layers of this is nocturnal versus diurnal calculation error. Most software uses sunrise and sunset. The correct method is the sun above the horizon, sun above horizon equaling the day chart, even if it's someone's born at night. Advanced, calculating both. Day formula equals conscious luck. Night formula equals unconscious luck. Part of fortune's anti-scion. Hidden fortune. Opportunities that come through synchronicity. Calculating 180 degrees. Fortune's position, then reflect across Cancer Capricorn axes. Here's the fortune derivations. The part of spirit, opposite fortune, soul's intentionality. Ratio, fortune divided by spirit equals bliss to will ratio in life. Obscure but critical points. Part of necessity, the ascendant and Saturn subtracted the moon. What you must do to feel secure, shows karmic obligations that feel like gravity. Part of Eros, ascendant and Venus, subtracting Mars, not just sexuality but creative magnetism principle, how you attract what you desire in a manifestation. The part of catastrophe, ascendant in Mars, subtracting Saturn, your personal Achilles heel collapse pattern, when triggered, creates domino effect failures. You have the part of sudden advancement, ascendant in Jupiter, subtracting Uranus, breakthrough moments that bypass normal effort, often activated by transit stationing at this degree. Part of karma, ascendant in Saturn, subtracting the node ruler, specific debt reward mechanism in this life. For example, if the node ruler is Jupiter, part equals ascendant in Saturn, subtracting Jupiter. The vertex, anti-vertex axes, the fated intersection, astronomy, secondary descendant, where ecliptic meets prime vertical west. Interpretive keys, the vertex as a soul agreement, intersection points, people, events you recognize instantly, different from attraction, not fate, but recognition of prearranged contracts. Anti-vertex as what you must become to attract vertex experiences, the personal transformation required for fated encounters. Vertex conjunctions, transiting planet conjunct vertex, 3-day window of fated encounter. Natal planet conjunct vertex, that planet's function is tied to destiny meetings. Vertex in the 7th house, fated meetings obvious. Vertex in the 6th house, fated meetings through service and work easier to miss. Quantum model, vertex equals quantum entanglement point with other consciousnesses. Anti-vertex equals observation position required to collapse the probability wave. The forgotten elements, trans-Neptunian points, Bruno, Uber, system. Okay. Cupido, group karma, family, clan patterns, Hades, ancestral ghost, what haunts the bloodline, Zeus, creative impulse beyond personal desire, Kronos, the teacher role you cannot refuse, Apollon, the gift that multiplies through sharing, Admetos, the core trauma that becomes foundation, Vulcanus, the superhuman capacity that emerges under pressure, Poseidon, the mystical revelation that reconfigures reality. Uranian hypothetical planets, Hades, 90 degrees behind Jupiter, repetitive karmic lessons, Zeus, 90 degrees ahead of Mars, creative destiny, Kronos, 90 degrees ahead of Saturn, mastery through teaching, Apollon, 60 degrees ahead of Jupiter, abundance through expansion. Asteroids beyond the big four, Aries, the revolutionary truth you're afraid to speak, Sedna, icebound trauma that requires shamanic retrieval, Make, personal creation myth you must enact, Hamia, fertility of consciousness, what you can birth mentally, Orcus, oath-bound promises across lifetimes, geometric sensitive points, the Aries point, 0 degrees cardinal points, so 0 degrees Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn. The function is personal to collective transduction points. Planet at 0 degrees cardinal, that planet's energy gets amplified into the collective movement. For example, Venus at 0 degrees Libra becomes the archetype of relationships for a generation. Let's talk about midpoints again. 90-degree wheel, Sun, Moon, midpoint, identity core, more fundamental than the ascendant. Ascendant, midheaven, midpoint, vertex is approximation, incarnation point. Planetary picture method, any 2 points plus the midpoint equals a complete story. I'd say of, the natal promise. Let's look at the synthesis protocol for esoteric points. So step 1 is identifying activated degrees by listing all planets within 1 degree of fixed stars, noting anaretic 29 degrees and critical degrees. Step 2, calculate the shadow chart, all Arabian parts on separate wheel, draconic chart overlay, vertex, anti-vertex, axes drawn. Layer interpretation, natal, conscious personality, draconic soul intention, part-heavy chart, karmic mechanisms, fixed star contacts, galactic influences. Step 4, identify portals, where 3 or more esoteric points cluster, equaling reality gateway. For example, vertex at 26 degrees Taurus, algo with part of catastrophe equals fated transformation through crises. In step 5, timing esoteric activation. Progress sun and moon contacting esoteric points equals initiation periods. Solar arc directing angles to fixed stars equals destiny moments. Nodal transits over esoteric points equals karmic reckoning. Here's a case example, the occulted architecture. Native with sun at 26 degrees Taurus, Algol conjunction exact, vertex at 15 degrees Gemini, Aldebaran exact, Black Moon Lilith conjunct the IC, also known as the I-Moon Coli, and part of fortune at 29 degrees Scorpio. So here's the analysis. Algol's sun, identity built through surviving beheading experiences, must learn to wield Medusa's power without turning to stone. Vertex Aldebaran, fated encounters come through cosmic messenger role, relationships initiate galactic consciousness. Lilith and Moon Coli, family history of exiled feminine, home itself is shadow territory. Part of fortune at 29 degrees, luck comes through surrender to scorpionic transformation, financial gain through others' crises. Here's the synthesis. The soul incarnated to transform ancestral shadow, Lilith IC through fated galactic connections, Vertex Aldebaran, while managing dangerous power, Algol's sun. The anaretic fortune says wealth emerges only after an ego death. Here's the ethical considerations. So fixed stars are not excuses, they're evolutionary pressures. Lilith is not bad, she's unintegrated potential. Vertex contacts don't guarantee happiness, they guarantee importance. Arabian parts reveal mechanisms, not inevitabilities. The most esoteric point is free will, always emphasize. The final insight is this. The obscure points form the dark matter of the astrological chart, invisible to standard analysis, but constituting 95% of the soul's architecture. Mastery lies not in adding more points, but in understanding how the visible planets are modified by this hidden infrastructure. Remember, the most powerful astrology happens in the spaces between the points, in the resonant geometry that whispers what the symbols cannot say. The stars impel, the esoteric points compel, consciousness dispels. And in my next video, I'll be going over some more pages in Fishy Flux, and we'll see you there to teach you more with my original advanced astrology genius concepts that will blow up in the future. Okay.